The wind dragged itself across the high plains like a rasp over raw flesh, peeling the morning open with ice and silence. Snow didn't fall so much as it scraped sideways, carving through the dead streets of Three Cedars and weaving itself through wagon ruts and up against warped wooden posts like spike-given form. Branches tapped against shuttered windows with the sound of brittle bones, and somewhere far off, a lone coyote cried into the frozen dawn, unanswered. Only 3 chimneys smoked that morning. The rest of the town stayed curled tight in its silence, doors barred not from fear but from something colder judgment. At the church rail, lashed upright like a criminal in the stocks, stood the girl. A grain sack covered her head, cinched tight at the neck with rusted wire, the skin beneath it puckered and red. Her feet were bare, toes blued and buried into the ice-packed mud. Her dress thin, stained, fluttering like torn paper clung to her bones in the wind's breath. She didn't cry, not aloud, but her body trembled with a deep, rhythmic shudder, like every breath had to be earned from whatever God hadn't yet looked away. Eunice Draper walked past with a steaming kettle of lard in one hand and a Bible tucked under her arm. She didn't stop, just looked once and muttered, "Lord sees all," then stepped daintily over the girl's shadow like it might somehow reach up and stain her hem. No one else came, not then, but everyone knew. They whispered she was property bartered off to Ike Talbert for a bay horse and a bottle of firewater, said she brought sin with her and earned the wire rope. Whether anyone believed it didn't matter. In Three Cedars, what was repeated became truth. It always did. The snow began to give way by noon, melting on the shoulders of the man who came through the pass. His coat was patched black wool, his hat drawn low, shadowing the scar that cut beneath one eye. The wagon behind him groaned under rough sawn pine, sacks of feed, and a tangled coil of fencing wire. He didn't stop when he saw her, just steered the horses wide around the church, and glanced for a second too long. They called him Thatcher. Boone, a man who kept to himself with a silence that repelled questions. Whispers said his wife had died strange, said wolves roamed his land, and he spoke to them in ways no man should. But no one denied his strength, the way his hands looked, made to forge metal or crush it, or that his eyes carried winter in them, cold and still. He passed through town without a word, but halfway out, the wind turned, and with it came a sound of cough, dry and brittle, like paper being torn. He pulled the reins, stopped, sat there a moment, jaw working beneath his stubble. Then he turned the wagon around. She hadn't moved, not since dawn, they said. Not since I dared anyone to cut her down. Thatcher climbed down, boots soft in the snow, and looped the reins over the rail. He approached her slowly, like a man stepping onto thin ice. She flinched when she heard his footsteps. Behind the frosted glass of homes, eyes blinked, but no. Doors opened. "Who's she to you?" Sheriff Keller asked, stepping out from the shadows of the smithy, jaw working jerky like it hurt to chew. Thatcher didn't respond. He stared at the wire, his fists curled. "Talbert says he bought her." The sheriff added, "You want trouble with that family. Town's barely held together as it is." Still no answer. "We all got lines," Keller said softly. "Let this be one." Thatcher drew his knife. Sunlight kissed its edge like a sliver of ice. One cut and the wire unraveled, dropped to the snow like a dead thing. She swayed. He caught her one arm behind her knees, one bracing her back. She didn't struggle, didn't speak, but her raw, frost-bitten hand curled weakly into his coat, like something desperate for warmth but too used to pain to trust it. He laid her in the wagon with the same quiet care he gave busted fence posts or injured calves. "Don't say I didn't warn you," the sheriff muttered, and vanished back into the dark. No one tried to stop him, but someone spit near his tracks. As he rolled out of town, the road home was long, the sky gray, the snow light but endless. She didn't stir, even when it began to settle into the folds of her thin dress. Thatcher pulled a horse blanket over her and said nothing. Halfway home, he passed a shattered coyote snare and ground it beneath his boot without slowing. His ranch stood at the crest of a hill, crooked, weather-worn, stubborn. The porch creaked beneath his boots as he carried her inside. The door swung open on the wind's breath, and the room greeted them with smoke and pine tar and the quiet simmer of stew on the stove. He laid her on the cot near the fire, shut the door with a firmness that made the rafters moan. When he reached for the sack, she flinched, her breath hitched, shallow and panicked. "I ain't here to hurt you," he said, voice low and rough like stones in a riverbed. She trembled anyway, so he stepped back, brought her water and a slice of bread, left them on the stool beside her, and settled down near the hearth. With the stillness of someone used as silence, she didn't eat that night, didn't drink, didn't cry. When she finally slept, it was upright, still masked, hands clenched tight, around the edge of the blanket like claws. The next morning came brittle and pale. She awoke to the rhythm of his axe outside. She crossed the floor softly, feet swallowed in boots too large. She found the water, sipped carefully from under the sack, and touched her bruises with the kind of gentleness born from disbelief. When he stepped inside, snow melting from his shoulders and a rabbit slung limp in his hand, she froze. "You hungry?" he asked. No reply. He hung the rabbit by the fire, struck a match. She backed into a corner like a dog taught to expect pain. "You got a name?" he asked as he sat at the table. She almost answered. "Almost. They called me nothing." She whispered, said I was a thing. His face remained still, but his eyes darkened. "Well," he said quietly, "nothing's still alive." That night, she dreamed of her mother's voice, of bead-threading songs, of hands that smelled of earth and flower. She woke with a muffled cry and curled against the wall. On the third morning, she stepped outside. The snow had crusted into ice. That cracked beneath the borrowed boots. A red cardinal perched on the clothesline. Bold and defiant, she stood at the gate where Thatcher was mending fence. He glanced up. Storm's coming. She nodded and lifted the sack just enough to breathe. That night, she ate a full bowl. He didn't say a word, but after she'd fallen asleep, he left a small smooth stone beside her cup, pale, warm to the touch, a gift with no expectation. She stared at it a long time come morning. And then, slowly, she untied the sack. Her face was a map of healing wounds, purple blooming beneath the skin. A split lip, but her eyes, one hazel, one green, luminous and strange. He glanced up, said nothing, went back to stitching his saddle. She stepped closer, holding the stone in one hand. "My name's Willa," she said. He looked up again and smiled once, faint and true. At the edge of town, a pair of binoculars glinted in the snow. A note passed from gloved hand to horseman. Ike Talbot read it, mouth a thin grim line. "Tell the sheriff," he said, "I'm coming back for what's mine." Back at the ranch, the fire crackled warmer. The house still leaned a little, porch sagging, one board whining like a piano key out of tune. But the walls were thick, and the hearth steady. It was not a house that asked questions. It just stood, holding the silence, letting sorrow move through it like smoke curling from the stovepipe. Willa sat near the fire, arms wrapped around her knees. The sack lay folded beneath the cot, but sometimes her hands still reached for it. In sleep, she bore her bruises now like ghosts half evicted. The scab on her cheekbone caught the light. Her mouth tilted with suspicion whenever kindness came close. Thatcher moved with deliberate quiet. He poured coffee into a tin cup, slid another toward her. She didn't touch it right away, just watched the steam rise like it might spell something sacred. "I'll be fencing the north line today," he said, voice gruff but never unkind. She nodded. Her tangled hair hung across her cheek like dry prairie grass. He never asked why she didn't brush it. Later she cleaned the hearth, not because he asked, because ashes reminded her of cold mornings and ropes that cut. Beneath the firewood, she found a tin box. Inside, 3 silver buttons, a ribbon, a child's glove. She didn't take them, just placed the box back where it belonged. That night, he came home soaked and weary. The table was set, 2 bowls, 2 spoons. He blinked, sat, ate in silence. That had begun to soften less like stone, more like music waiting to be played. "You ever cook rabbit before?" She hesitated. "Mama used to." I watched. He nodded. "You got the broth right." She glanced at her hands. He asked about her dress. "Not mine," she whispered. "Mine burned. Part of it." No reply. Just bread passed gently between them. Their fingers touched. She didn't pull away. days blurred. She woke early now, brushing her hair, tracing letters onto a cracked slate, thread, bread, river, drawing shapes beside them. He saw. "Keep goin'," he said. He taught her to whittle. Pine curls fell like feathers. Her fingers bled once, but he didn't scold, just handed her another stick when a storm came again, and he returned with a torn lip. She cleaned it carefully. "Why? Do you help me?" she asked. He looked at her, quiet. "Because no one else did." She nodded. And that night, he left a second pillow on her cot. She went to the barn the next day. A horse nuzzled her hand. He stood nearby. "She likes you," he said. "She's beautiful," Willa whispered. "She's mean," he added gently. "Name's Dusty." "She don't look dusty," she used. "To be white. Mud'll hide shine if you roll in it long enough. I know that feeling." He said nothing, just nodded. Later, he brought her a mirror, old, warped, uncertain, set it down beside the fire. "You don't have to," he said, "but maybe when you're ready." She waited. Hours passed, but when the fire burned low, she lifted it. Looked. Her face was not her own. Not at first. It was something bruised and broken. But beneath that faint, flickering, a girl threading beads, a girl barefoot in creeks. She wept. Not loud, like rain on a roof. "Mary Bell," she whispered. "Mama." Green eyes, sang like river water. "They burned the cabin, said it was cursed. Ike said no one would want me after him. He was wrong," Thatcher said. She looked up. "Doesn't matter what he said. Ain't truth just 'cause it's loud." She bit her lip. "Then I'd like to stay, if that's all right." He didn't answer with words, just nailed a plank above her cot. "A shelf, for your things," he said. That night, she placed the river stone on it. Then the ribbon dot in the morning. A red X marked the door. A note beneath it. "She don't belong there. Let her go or we come back with fire." Thatcher burned it. Loaded his shotgun. Said nothing. And in the dark, as snow began again to fall around the small house on the hill, Willa whispered her name aloud, as if daring the silence to forget it. By March, the thaw came slow, secret. Ice melted in seams, trees stirred, and the land began to breathe again. Willa stood on the back step, sleeves rolled, sun warming her face. A basin steamed at her feet. She laundered the clothes, now not from obligation, but because the rhythm gave her peace. Her fingers were steady again. Inside, Thatcher stirred the fire. He'd returned from town late, smelling of smoke and unease. At breakfast, she asked, "Trouble, talk?" He said, "What kind?" "Same kind that grows fastest when no one knows what they're saying." "Eunice Draper." She said I'd built a shrine to a girl with a sack for face. Willa blushed. She said worse. He handed her warm cornbread. She stared at it before taking it. "They think I'm hiding something wicked here," he said. "Are you?" Her voice was soft. He looked at her then, really looked. "No," he said, and it landed between them like a promise. That day, she followed him past the fence line. First time she'd gone that far. Her dress was taken in at the waist, enough to fit. The valley opened wide below, streams swollen with meltwater. Willows bent to it like old women whispering. She gathered wild onion into her apron. "I didn't think I'd see this again," she said. "Spring?" he asked. She nodded. "Last one." Mama was singing. Said the creek forgives, carries everything away eventually. He squinted toward the horizon, said nothing, and beside him, Willa stood tall in the thaw, the sack long gone, and her name spoken now like a claim no one could take. He drove the fence post into the ground with a dull thud, the kind of sound that settled into the bones. Willa reached for the coil of wire beside him. He didn't stop her. Together, without a word, they worked in quiet rhythm to silhouettes bent to the same task, moving like old echoes across the land. But the wind shifted, tugged at the edges of silence, and from the ridge came the soft percussion of hooves. Thatcher straightened, his hand drifting instinctively toward the butt of his revolver. Willa froze, her fingers still wrapped around the wire. Two riders approached, shadows at first, then clearer, Sheriff Keller and Ike Talbert. Willa's breath caught sharp in her chest. Her knees weakened, but she didn't fall. Thatcher stepped in front of her before either man could swing down from the saddle. "You ain't welcome here," he said, voice like stone. Sheriff Keller tipped his hat with no warmth. Didn't come for tea. Willa slowly rose to her full height. Ike dismounted. With theatrical arrogance, his boots hitting the earth like a threat. He sneered. Didn't know you were taking in strays now, Boone. That's mighty charitable. She's not yours, Thatcher replied, flat as a hammer strike. Ike's eyes slid to Willa, hungry with memory. She was, no, Willa said. Her voice cracked through the air like a whip. Both men turned to her. I was never yours. Not once. Ike's lip curled into something mean. You forget whose name you bore, girl. I never bore it, she said. You never asked. Thatcher's fingers drifted toward the rifle slung behind him. The sheriff raised a hand. Easy. Now no law's been broken here. Then why come? Thatcher asked. The sheriff hesitated. You know how towns are. Whispers turn into footsteps. Sometimes those footsteps carry pitchforks or torches. She's done nothing wrong. Doesn't matter, Keller said. She was branded property once, legal or not. Perception drowns truth. I don't give a damn what they think. Well, Keller said quietly, they do. Ike spat near the fence post. You think hiding her here's gonna wash the shame off? Ain't no fire hot enough for that. Thatcher stepped forward. One more word. Talbert. Ike raised his hands, mocking. Just delivering the message. I'll tell him you ain't giving her back. Thatcher nodded once. Ike smirked, climbed into the saddle, and added over his shoulder. When the town comes knocking, you'll wish you hadn't picked a ghost to guard. They left in a haze of dust. Willa said nothing until they reached the porch. I'll go. She murmured. You shouldn't have to. Stop, she whispered. He closed the door behind them. The wind howled once before the latch clicked shut. You're not going anywhere. Her voice trembled. They'll come. Then let them. She stepped closer. You'll lose everything. He looked at her, calm and unflinching. I already did. What happened? She asked softly. He moved to the hearth and picked up a weathered photograph in a cracked leather frame. He handed it to her, a woman, dark-haired, bright-eyed, holding a small child. She was my wife. That's our boy. Willa swallowed. What happened to them? Fever, he said. Took them both in for days. She gripped the frame tighter. I'm sorry, you don't have to be. But now you know. I've lost before. Still here. She set the photo down gently beside the lamp. That night, sleep didn't come easily. In the flicker of the lantern, near her cot, she traced a word onto her slate. Stay, then erased it. She wrote again. Slower this time, ma'am. Then, Willa Boone. She stared at the words for a long while before rubbing them out. 2 days passed. No writers, no letters, just a silence heavy as thunderclouds. Then, late in the afternoon, glass shattered, the front window broken by a rock wrapped in paper. Thatcher rose, rifle in hand. Willa ran ahead, unwrapped the message. House or pine box, you choose. She didn't cry. Instead, she swept the glass from the sill and pinned the message above the stove. Let it hang like a challenge. I'm not afraid anymore, she said. Thatcher nodded, but she noticed his hand tremble as it gripped the rifle. The next morning, Willa went to town, alone. She wore a clean dress. Her hair was braided. The bruises had faded but not disappeared. She walked straight down Main Street like it belonged to her. Children whispered. Grown folks stared. No one stepped near. Eunice Draper leaned from her porch, teacup shaking in her hand. Shame don't melt easy, does it? Willa turned to face her. Is that what you think I am? Shame, Eunice blinked. You ought to keep quiet. I was quiet when they hurt me, Willa said. You told me the Lord sees all. So let him see me now. Let him see I didn't die when they meant me to. Eunice trembled. You don't belong here. Willa looked around. Same cracked sidewalks, same twitching curtains. No, she said, but I belong somewhere. Back at the ranch, Thatcher was waiting. I went to town. She said, I know, alone, I know. He repeated. How'd it feel? He asked, like drowning. He looked at her. But you came up for air. That night, she cooked supper, laid the table with linen she found folded behind the stove, lit a candle. When he sat, she poured him coffee. What if they don't stop? She asked. Thatcher looked at her. Then, we don't either. She nodded. Before bed, she folded the rock's note and placed it beneath her pillow. as if daring it to follow her into her dreams. Outside, under the full moon, someone watched from the trees. Another lit a match tonight, he whispered. The fire began just after midnight. A small glow near the fence line, but wind at night is cruel. The dry grass, starved and brittle, caught fast. Thatcher's boots hit the floorboards before the smoke reached the house. He didn't yell, but the urgency in his breath said everything. Willa didn't ask. She ran. They fought the fire side by side. Pails, shovels, stamping embers. Sparks leapt like red insects from the dry rails. Her braid came undone. Her palms blistered. Her lungs filled with ash still. She didn't stop. By dawn, the flames were gone. But the damage remained. They meant to scare us, Willa said. To drive me off. They failed, Thatcher said, helping her up. But she wasn't sure. When they returned, the front door hung open. A knife was stabbed into the table. Her old sack one she had buried deep under her cot was nailed above. The hearth, underneath, carved into the wood. Put it back on. Willa stared at it, legs frozen, voice like dust. They were inside. I'll fix the door, Thatcher said. But his voice didn't carry like it once did. She cleaned the ashes from her hands, scrubbed the table raw. The knife stayed on the floor, its hilt dark with something she didn't want to name. No one in town mentioned the fire. No one came. It was as if nothing had happened. That made it worse. 2 days later, a boy on a mule delivered a letter. You're invited to leave before we send something that doesn't burn out. No signature. None needed. Maybe I should go, Willa whispered. But Thatcher was already shaking his head. I didn't build this house to keep it empty. I don't want you hurt because of me. He touched her wrist, just a graze, enough to steady her. They hurt you, and you're still here. That's what scares them, she breathed in. Then let them be afraid. The next morning, Willa rode into town, not hidden, not hurried. She passed through the center like the wind itself, unapologetic. She dismounted at the sheriff's office. You here to report something? Keller asked. No, she said. I'm here to give warning. She handed him the note. Ike Talbert sent this. I want it on record. You got proof? I've got bruises and a witness. That ain't legal proof. No, she said. It's just truth. You make folks nervous. I'm not trying to be liked. I'm trying to live. Then she left him there, his mouth full of excuses he didn't get to use. That night, the knock was soft, once, then again. Thatcher opened the door, shotgun in hand. Ike stood alone. I don't want trouble, he said. You brought it anyway, Thatcher replied. She's mine, Ike said. She never was. Then Willa's voice rang clear from behind Thatcher. You lost the right to name me, Ike. Blinked, his confidence cracked. You brought a knife, she said, but you didn't use it. Because you're afraid. For once, I'm not. Thatcher stepped aside, not to shield her, but to show her strength didn't need it. Ike backed away, muttered, walked into the trees. Inside, she leaned against the door. I thought I'd feel something, she said. Peace, revenge. But I just feel like breathing again. She turned to Thatcher. I want to stay, not just here with you. I want to build something that can't be burned. He pulled out a box. Inside, the silver rings. My wife's, her mother's before that. I'm not ready, Willa said, tears in her voice. But I want to be. She knelt beside him. You're the first man who didn't treat me like I owed him something. That's why I stayed. That's why I'll keep staying. He nodded. Then I'll keep making this place safe. You keep making it a home. She smiled softly. The wind outside shifted, but it carried only warmth this time. Just dust and the scent of earth ready to bloom. Willa reached for the kettle, poured them both coffee. I want to plant something, she said. Something that grows wild and deep. So even if they burn it down again, it'll come back. Thatcher looked at her. You already did.